Hello, I am Bentham and welcome back to Factorio Town. So in the previous episode we started working on the southeast wall extending out from Worcester. We have the military science up and running, everything is fine there, mostly, occasionally struggling with the iron supply. But now we are focused on getting that wall built. We have it extending up northwards to the lake over there, but we still have a very large amount of it to do. And we're going to struggle a little bit in terms of resources, mainly, of course, in terms of stone. It uses a lot of stone to make the walls. I think it ends up being that it's 10 stone ore per single wall, because you need 2 stone to make a brick and then 5 bricks to make a wall. So it is really quite expensive to build a wall extending across a huge section of the county. This is possibly going to be the longest wall we have. Maybe it's probably going to be second longest. I think the southwest wall is slightly longer overall. I'm going to connect this up to the first bit of water we come across, basically. Not trying to extend it further than we need to get it in place. That does mean that there'll be more issues with pollution going beyond the wall and it resulting in biters attacking from it, but I just want this in place to stop them constantly bombarding all the towns in the southeast, particularly places like Southbridge and stuff, which are just constantly having breaches in the walls, constantly having turrets blown up and running out of ammo and things like that. It's terrible. So we're continuing to extend it with what little stone we have available. We've got some stone bricks that we grabbed from the car to continue it on a bit. Unfortunately, we attract the attention of a biter base nearby that ends up wrecking some of what we built, but it's only turrets, and turrets is something that we're not short on, so that's fine. We can just easily craft those, and they're now being made automatically in Worcester anyway, so that's fine. We extend it along as far as our walls will take us, but I think that is it for those supplies, and so we'll have to go and get more before we can continue the work there. But it's a decent amount of progress. It's going to definitely protect, like, Forgedale, well, the lower half of Forgedale is still going to get attacked from the northeast, of course. Newton should be in a better state now, but what we need to do is make sure to clear out the bases inside the bounds of the wall as well, otherwise it's completely pointless. Though, with the wall not fully in place yet, they could still sneak around and get back into position, but they should at least make it take them a while to get back into position again. And stop them trying to hook around the back of Worcester and try and take out sections that we've not properly set up the defences for. So we clear out all the important bases there and then do some repair work as the bases continue to attack the wall. There's one that's a little bit too close. It keeps randomly aggroing, and that sort of thing is just not a good idea to leave standing, because if the base is constantly being aggroed, it's constantly sending biters and there's always damage being done, and so it doesn't take very long for the wall to crumble in the face of just one by one behemoth spitters coming in and getting one shot off before they die and things like that. So you run around this one and clear it out, but the problem is that we start running out of flamethrower ammo. You can see we've got 2 canisters left there, and there's still a couple of worms around the place I need to deal with. End up resorting to using grenades to clear out these last 3 here. And then we still need a little bit more fire just to finish off these 2 worms up here. We end up with a single canister of flamethrower fuel left, so we definitely need to go to Frackham and resupply quickly. And until then, we are not dealing with any bases. Using normal ammo or shotgun ammo does not do anything near as much as flamethrowers do. I mean, shotguns were always pretty good. They were the weapon of choice back before flamethrowers were a thing. But back then you also needed very large numbers of destroyer drones and things like that to stand a chance against the larger bases. And I don't have that sort of thing available yet. We'll have to make a town for that at some point. And that will probably be the one that the northeast wall is based off. So back in Worcester for a moment, looking at the situation with the iron, it's not looking very good. It seems like the belt is full, and yet not all the furnaces are able to run because the lines have backed up. And I thought that it was 24 furnaces to fill up a yellow belt, so maybe it is that, and it's just a case that things ended up building up a bit from times when things weren't running at full speed. I don't know, but either way I put in a second belt to make sure that there's definitely no throughput issues in case I did get the ratios of that sort of thing wrong. Resupplying on grenades and turrets and all that, we made sure to have a little bit of extra production in so that we can always grab some from there. Still, with the issues with iron, it's not working perfectly, but what we've done is we've got a chest that siphons off some of the, well, like half of the turrets so that we can always get a supply from there. And then that means that there's an imbalance of turrets and grenades, so that a bunch of grenades build up on the line, so I can get both the things from the town without too much trouble. So, over in Frackham, we go and grab some more flamethrower fuel. Probably put some more steel into the system, because one furnace is not enough to keep us well enough supplied with flamethrower ammo. And then we go around the defensive line over here, which is in a very bad state. We've been ignoring it for a while and just hoping that the flamethrower turrets can deal with it. And now there's basically there were almost no turrets, like normal turrets, left running. They were all out of ammo, some of them were destroyed, it was all a mess. And so I've decided to fix it. There is an argument to be made for just using the flamethrower turrets, but I like to have a secondary way of dealing with them. You never know when something might happen with the oil supply and it all gets used up. I've not paid much attention to the oil supply in a while, and for all I know, the medium oil tank could be really suffering at the moment for one reason or another. Unlikely, but it's something that could happen, and I don't want to rely too much on it. It uses up our oil supply, which we need for other things. But yeah, I decided to resupply those, and unfortunately I can't build a proper supplying line for the ammo because of the way I've set things up. What I really need to do at some point is just extend out the east wall of Frackham by a good, like, 8 tiles, and make enough space to have a proper system feeding in ammo, and also enough room so that we can unload and load into trains on the other side, because at the moment everything's a little bit crammed into one small space there. Not a very good way of doing it. I did not consider the future of that town when I was building that wall. I made it far too close, and it's caused me all sorts of trouble. But hopefully what I can do is just build all the outer walls and not have to actually do proper overhauls of all the towns, and just have it so that once the walls are in place, don't even need to build defences around the towns. They'll all just be fine. I mean, there's a danger that biters might manage to breach a wall occasionally, and so we do want to make sure there are some defences in the town so that they can fend off those attacks and not let the biters have just free reign if they do manage to breach the wall. But I'm hoping that the wall, like, if I build the walls quick enough, then ultimately I won't need to do all the faffing about sorting out supply trains delivering ammo to every single town and things like that. If I'd had the central rail, if I'd had a 3-rail system instead of a 2-rail one, I absolutely would have set that up a lot earlier on, just because it would have made so much sense for the middle rail to be entirely for, like, service trains. And it would have been quite a cool system to have, but unfortunately I only ever went for the 2-line system, and regretted it ever since, really, because it also means that personal trains are more awkward to manage. I can't just leave one in every station and wander off and come back to one, and it makes the car easier, even though it really doesn't fit the theme of the series. But at least I can have a bunch of stuff loaded into the car, so I always have a toolbox of equipment around whenever I need it. Anyway, we're over in Fortin right now to grab some more ammo. We used up all of it, resupplying the turrets over in Frackham, and I try and resupply from Fortin, but there's no ammo spare. There's none built up. It's constantly being used by the trains that are arriving to deliver it over, mainly to Worcester, of course, because as I extend the wall, the belt extends, and there's more turrets, and everything needs ammo. In the end, I do a bit of tweaking to make it so that the copper can flow into the system better, so that we can potentially get a higher rate of production. And then it turns out that there's an issue with the copper supply if the train isn't delivering enough of it, and so I'll have to do something about the train later. Probably have 2 trains coming from Forgedale, one going to Chipton, and then the other one dealing with all the other bits, because having one train do all of it seems to not be a good way of doing it. I imagine that, like, Forgedale is shutting down between train visits because it has such a long timetable to follow. And then there's not enough copper to go around. Speaking of, over in Redports, there's a bit of a problem with the copper supply as well. We come over here to fix the defensive lines because they've been struggling as well. And while I'm here, I discover that the miners are not doing great. There's a fair bit of copper left, but there's no longer enough to keep the furnaces running at the speed they want to be running. The copper plate supply is now what is limiting the production of advanced circuits. And so I run through and put in a super dense version of the miners. Basically compress them in as much as I can on all remaining bits of copper, and then that should hopefully be enough to keep the system running at a good speed for now, until we get round to doing some more work in Forgedale and getting copper delivered to here from there. It's a bit of a turn of the tables in the end, because I think that up till recently the copper ore was delivered from here to Chipton, maybe? Think about it, I didn't actually check whether I'd shut that down. I don't know if there's still a bunch of copper ore sat in a train somewhere that is no longer being used. I should keep track of that. But again, that goes into the big plan at some point to do a complete overhaul of the trains to make them make any sort of sense again, and not have it all bootstrapped and shoehorned in. And that is something that I will do off camera. I'll work out what all the trains will be, and then in an episode I will park them all up somewhere, empty them out, give them their new routes, and hopefully have a much more smoothly running rail system once that's all done. But yeah, so I did go and grab a bunch of ammo from Fortin, but I had to do it by hoovering it up from the line feeding the northwest wall, which is not a good way of doing it, because now it means that half of the coming ammo production will now go into filling up that belt again. And so it's a very short-term solution, so I can fix a couple of defensive lines that results in a long-term issue of the entire supply of ammo being more limited for a while. But I have looked at the production graphs and all the information for that, and at the moment we are making more ammo than we're using up. So we are overall okay, and things will improve. The only issue at the moment is that I'm creating new places for the ammo to be. I'm making the new line for the southeast wall and all the turrets along it, and so ammo is having to be loaded into those, and it's making it essentially like we are running out of ammo, that we're having less and less in the system because actually the system is getting bigger and the ammo is not increasing as quickly. So it is a bit of a problem, but slowly but surely the ammo supply should improve, especially once the wall's in place and we need to use up less constantly defending against biter attacks, because they stop trying to attack every single little town, and there'll only be a few biter bases that are inside pollution range to do attacks anymore. So things will get better in that respect. We should be okay, at least in that way. And there's many other ways that we have to more urgently worry about. But yes, currently I'm building a new rail line. This is running parallel to the line that goes up to Worcester. Maybe not the best way of doing it, but this has always been a very slapdash system. Sort of to be realistic, really, because in real life you don't plan out where every single town is going to be and work out a really clever way to have all the rails connect up to it. All the towns just get randomly built by people turning up and starting mining stuff and then building houses and things like that, and then you've got to make the rail system work around that. We've at least got the advantage of rails existing from very early on in the campaign, so that we know at least to make some room for rails when we're building the towns. And we even build the rails before we build the towns, just so we can line up the stations nicely. Whereas, of course, in real life, you just got to find a place to stick a station that works, and you just got to try your best. So the system isn't well designed. It's not like one central line with lots of nice branches that are all neat. It's lots of loops and awkward things, and multiple routes of getting from A to B that can mess up the trains and things like that. And you've got to constantly try and make sure that everything is still working okay. And you get weird systems like one line going through Colbury and another one going through Julborough that basically just go to the same place, but had to be separate because of the way round that the town was, and stuff like that. And I think that's the right way to do it. Like, I could have had a proper fancy plan right from the beginning, but I think it's better if I've had to sort of work around issues and do it in a more realistic way of having to like choose where the towns go and then build the rails to suit that, and just try and make the trains work around that system. And occasionally I'll even deliberately do things like put a town far away from where it needs to be. So I'll put Redport in on like the opposite end of the county to where Chipton is and stuff like that, because those sort of awkward things end up happening in real life. But anyway, yes, we're now setting up the station here next to this giant iron deposit we have, which in my head I've always called the fish ore, because it looks like fish. It's got it's like the tails at the top, and then the head is facing to the east, and it's even got like little fins at the top and bottom as well. It's funny how often you end up with ore deposits that look like things, like the apple ore in Rail World and stuff like that. So yeah, here I am putting in the standard station design. I do need to fix the blueprint for it though, because ever since I made it, I've known that there's been a problem with it of how the signals are arranged. It says it wrong on one side of it, because I know that there are supposed to be 9 signals on this particular system on either end to make it work properly, and this one has 9 on one side, but they're in the wrong place, and so I have to remember that on one of the sides of this blueprint I have to change one of them and move it elsewhere, otherwise everything will be completely broken. So really I should just fix the blueprint by making one of these and fixing it, blueprinting the fixed version, but I keep forgetting and just not doing that. But yeah, anyway, that is now in place. We've got a couple of turrets in place, but I think we've used up all the ammo we have available just supplying those 2, and we don't have any ammo left to make any more defenses. So that's a little bit awkward. It does mean that biters can very easily attack the place from any direction apart from east, and It's good that at the moment there's not any production being done there. That would attract the attention of the biters, so for the moment we're okay, but I do go out and deal with the biter bases to the south in the hope that they'll stay gone for a while, and that town will be nicely protected. And I should mention now that currently I'm not asking for suggestions for the name of this town. I'm yet to reveal exactly what this town is doing, but I don't actually want names for this because I've actually been planning what this particular town will be called for a very long time, and I already have a name in mind. If you want, you can suggest a name, and if something amazing comes up that I didn't think of, then maybe I will change it. But at the moment, that's not the plan. I've already chosen the name, and I will reveal it at the end of this episode. And you'll see the idea that I've got behind it. So yeah, that's now all in place. The station's there, so we can start getting trains running and so on. I also put in a radar because I always forget to do that, and it's so useful to have radars all over your county so you can see everything that's going on, and I keep forgetting it, and at some point I need to just put radars throughout the entirety of the county so I don't have gaps everywhere, because it just drives me nuts when biters attack somewhere I can't see and things like that, or I need to just check what some particular bit of rail looks like and I can't. Yeah, at some point I'll do that. That's on the very long to-do list, but today we're completing something else that's been on our to-do list for a very long time. And as you can see, I'm building another station right next to the station we already have, because today I am building twin towns. Two towns that will be right next to each other. They will share a border. They'll be a little bit like the Chipton-Southbridge thing, but then the Chipton-Southbridge thing is that Southbridge is like a subsection of Chipton and stuff like that. Even though its job is, well, yeah, its job still is entirely separate in that it mines coal, but eventually it'll become like an unloading area for ore, probably. Not for ore, for plates, for chips and things like that. So it'll sort of become more fitting to its name later on, once it actually is, like, it operates like a subsection of Chipton. At the moment, they are sort of like twin towns, but Chipton's the main one. But yes, that's what's going to happen here. But there's not going to be one main one. They're both just going to be equal in that they do their own things, but then they both trade materials across from one to the other to help each other out in production. I could have had a train do it, and it would have been more fitting to the thing, but I like the idea of having these two particular towns be right next to each other and share a border, and it's mainly because I thought of a funny thing to do with the names. And I've actually been planning this since before the series started. I had a couple of ideas about what certain towns would be like, and what names I might use for some of them, and I came up with these two twin towns that would have their twin names. Well, not twin names, but names that complemented each other, and so that's why we've come to this now. And it's awkward because it's been a build-up of years, basically, for me, and it's not actually that clever a thing. It's just a cool idea I thought of that I'll reveal at the end. So yeah, if you do come up with some like fantastic, even better names than I have, then I may even switch to that after having this whole plan here. Anyway, we went and grabbed a bunch more stone brick because we need it for the nameplates, of course. Got two of them to make at once, so we had to grab a fair bit of it to resupply after using up all of our supply of stone bricks on making more walls for the defensive line. But we park back up here, we now have all the materials, but there is one thing we want to do before we actually start putting the nameplates in place. I do have a bit of a think about where to put the plates, but I think, no, we've got to do this first, got to get this out of the way. Right over here, let's line it up, and we will place down our stone deposit. The day has finally come. I have built, I've cheated, I have ruined my chance of getting any more achievements. I think they were disabled anyway because this save existed before achievements did, and I haven't seen any achievements in a very long time. But there we go, we have done it now. That's probably the only time I'm going to use a command in this. I don't have any other plans to do that, but after talking about it for many months, I finally done it, and I used a command suggested by one of the viewers back in the earlier days when I concluded that I would have to cheat it in. Someone suggested, I believe their name was Martin H. They gave a command that would generate a small deposit that was quite dense and should provide me with enough stone, and I considered tweaking it and making it like more fit what I was looking for, but actually it's pretty perfect as it is. And it is a little bit weird because it's like there's as much stone in that deposit as there is in the copper deposit just to the south of it, which is significantly bigger, but I think that's fine. It suits really well, and now we'll finally be able to do some actual proper flooring in the towns, instead of just having to have abandoned it ages ago. And so yeah, that will be making stone and bricks and concrete and so on, and the other one will be making steel and rails and stuff like that. They will trade stuff across for their necessary recipes, and the names of the two towns, it's going to take a while for me to put the name down, so I'll just tell you. It's Steelbridge, as you've seen, and the other one is Stoneford. The entire idea of it is that it's two different means of crossing a river, and it also has the same sort of thing like Oxford and Cambridge, a sort of thing of having two towns at opposition to each other that both have similar but different approaches to the same problem of crossing a river, that sort of thing. We've had bridge before in Southbridge, but I thought it fit this very well. So there we go, the twin towns, and of course they both have recipes that require, well, Stoneford needs iron ore, Steelbridge needs raw stone, but that's all we have time for today, so we'll start building those next episode. With that, I just say goodbye, thank you for watching, I shall see you next time!